Hey everybody, Chris here. War broke out with Iran overnight and the markets are reacting. What's happening with Dogecoin and the Doge army? We're going to talk about that in this video. Please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Hit that little notification bell too. You can be notified when my videos come out as well as when I do live streams. Typically when we have these geopolitical tensions, especially when it breaks out something like war, the markets do react. And we saw that overnight. And what is the recovery going to look like? Or is there even going to be one? Is it going to go lower? What's going to happen throughout the rest of the weekend into Monday? Let's get into it. Let me show you the charts and the news. I'll show you what I'm looking at. And we start here, zoomed out a little bit, looking at the Dogecoin chart on the hourly chart. And this is the drop that we had here overnight when war broke out. Right now, there seems to be a little short-term recovery as Dogecoin is trying to get back over 9 cents. Now, we did have last week, Monday, Tuesday, we had this big V shape, and the breakout from that V recovery, and everyone was bullish, and Dogecoin is going crazy and all that, but you know it is a bear market, and these things can only last so long. Now, not that the 4-year cycle and the timing of things overall kind of dictates what price does, but we do tend to have these kinds of retraces that happen, and was expecting it to come back into the same range around 9.2, but the news always takes over technical analysis, and this was the big breakdown that we had overnight. So now as we go into Saturday, we're going to watch what Dogecoin is going to do as we come back up. Now Bitcoin, very similar. Bitcoin had a very similar path as Doge. Actually, Doge was outperforming Bitcoin. And that's kind of interesting to see because of the negative selling pressure that we have on Bitcoin that I'll show you in a minute. Because just because Jane Street had its the lawsuit and it's not manipulating the market, they're not the only ones that manipulate. And we've talked about the others, such as Binance and Hyperliquid and HDX and all those others that are continuing to manipulate in order to get around leverage trading. ETH down to 1887, Bitcoin at 64.4 now. It had dropped all the way down to 63K here. A lot of people think we're going to see sub 60,000 Bitcoin coming, and that may happen on Monday because the stock market is not going to like the war news. But right now, we do seem to see, again, a little bit of recovery happening. Dogecoin has now just, as I'm recording this, just come over 9 cents. So there is some positive trading going on, buying of the dips on the risk on assets right now, with the uncertainty of what's going on. So we look at Bitcoin, fell under 64K as the attack started on Iran. $100 million of leveraged longs were liquidated. So that is, that's what we see, right? And here we see the selling pressure. Panic selling is accelerating as U.S.-Iran tensions rise, with about $1.8 billion in aggressive sell volume hitting derivatives markets in just 1 hour this morning, signaling traders are rapidly de-risking. And so we see that selling pressure right here on this chart. That is the immediate news reaction that we typically see. Now this is of course overly exaggerated, but the point over here is, and certainly not that 99% of people will lose everything next week, because that is totally overblown. But what could happen as U.S. and Israel just started a war with Iran, Monday's crash will be even worse than people expect. Now, that's, again, a bit exaggerated as well, but I do think the stock market is not going to do well on Monday. Will it be a full-blown crash or not? We'll see, but bonds will dump, stocks will dump, and crypto dumps harder. If you hold any of these assets right now, be careful. You think this is just another headline? No, the setup is nothing like the last symbolic strikes, not a one-off move. This is the kind of operation that can and will stretch for days. Reports say U.S. military had already been preparing for a sustained weeks-long campaign against Iran. When a conflict stops being a headline, becomes a multi-day operation, the market stops pricing in shock, and it's looking at duration. And duration is where the real damage begins. So how can this play out? Light shock. Both sides trade strikes, both declare victory, markets slowly calm down after the initial panic. Is this one of those? Number 2, escalation. The U.S. gets pulled in deeper, the operation drags on, uncertainty starts hitting oil, shipping, inflation, defense spending. Or number 3 is the World War III that some are already declaring. Iran disrupts the Strait of Hormuz. The entire macro picture shifts in a matter of hours, and that is the true risk. Roughly 20% of global oil supply moves through the Strait of Hormuz. Any disruption there can send oil sharply higher. And of course, Trump doesn't want that. He wants to keep gas prices low in the United States. So that's tough. When liquidity tightens, risk gets dumped. And what gets dumped first? It's risk assets. Crypto particularly, but then you go on down the line from crypto or within crypto, and you see like altcoins and even memes get hit the hardest. We'll take a look at that in a minute as well. But high multiple tech stocks, speculative growth names, small caps, and yes, Bitcoin and crypto. When liquidity dries up, investors don't ask what they like, they ask what they can sell. Stocks don't fall because companies disappear overnight. They fall because positioning is crowded and leverage gets unwound. So on and on and on. So this is where we are. This could end as a short-term shock, but if it drags out, if Hormuz is disrupted, it becomes a completely different market. Not a dip, not a fake scare, a real regime shift in oil, inflation, and risk. Now, is this opportunity? There have been a lot of buying opportunities based on world events happening before. If you remember March 2020, when the whole COVID shock shut down the world, big drop in prices, but if you bought on those dips, you did pretty well. Now, I don't want to talk about, war is not good, right? People are dying. But if you're an investor, there are opportunities. U.S. spot Bitcoin ETFs, they were on track for their biggest week last week. All of a sudden, we had these big buying back in after all of that selling of the ETFs. We had buying last week. This is going to flip back to red. And when we have the big selling of the ETFs, that puts more selling pressure on Bitcoin. And I think that's what we're going to see next week. Bitcoin's making history for the wrong reasons. And this is the monthly chart of Bitcoin. And we're looking at 5 monthly red candles in a row. That hasn't happened since way back in 2018. 5 monthly candles in a row. This is not the pullback in Bitcoin that many were predicting, but this is what we have. It feels like we are speed running this bear market. Bottom sooner than you think. Could be, many were predicting fall 2026 to be the bottom. You know, I've been talking about summer. But here we are, we're just at the end of February, and things are not looking good. You guys still don't get it yet. It's not Binance, it's not Jane Street, it's not the war in Iran. Bitcoin was in a 3-year bull market and made 700%. Show me the chart and I'll tell you the news. What if October 10th hadn't happened? It's by far the worst low IQ take of all. And I'm like, well, no, that's not correct because 10/10 did happen and it did expose the manipulation that was in the markets, which eventually led to the lawsuit against Jane Street. And I think we're going to see more fallout from that. Goes out to all those experts who are furious because we dumped because of the war. Well, there's always the news. The news always takes over. We do have these liquidity cycles, though, and we're in low liquidity right now. So we have the overarching 4-year cycles, but the news is what triggers these kinds of pullbacks that we see again. Meanwhile, Bitcoin's only down about 3%, but the alts, big time. Look at SWE down 11%. Great project, but the alts get hurt. Dogecoin, it's also going to close a 5th month in losses, and meme coins are down even more. True crashing happening. Possibly, I don't think we're there with that total, like 10% a day for a few days kind of thing, but that is a possibility. Trader Allen, like, well, he was posting the Adam and Eve pattern with a possible breakout, and then he changed his tune as war broke out, and it's like, no, Dogecoin is breaking down the support on the daily chart, and so he's showing that fallback, as well as when we zoom out, looking at buying opportunities again. Dogecoin is approaching the monthly candle close and still holding the best buy level. So we are at that critical support level now. Indications are we could break down below it, though, with the recent news that is happening here. So if Doge holds that channel support into the close, I'd scale in small and add only on a reclaim of last month's level. Clean invalidation equals monthly close below support. So, and that's down to 8 cents. That was the dip that we saw in Doge, down to 8 cents. Now, what happens with Doge in the future? We know Dogecoin has this amazing opportunity, which is why I invest in Dogecoin, and many of you as well. The full picture is we got politics, we got economics, psychology, and sometimes these are negative. Right now, that is all negative. What's going to happen with Elon Musk? Is BlackRock going to somehow get involved in Dogecoin? What's going to happen with the Clarity Act? We got the midterm elections coming, retail adoption, X payments. Is McDonald's somehow going to come back into the picture again? I think there's a cascading effect that leads to something like that. Network effects. We've got Doge OS. We've got the Doge 1 mission next year. All of these things. There's a long list of all these things that could help Dogecoin. We talk about these many, many times on this channel. We will go through this list again in more detail. But right now, before we start talking about 30 cents, if Clarity passes, $1.20 for X main payment, $3 McDonald's, $4.20 other franchises follows, $10 BlackRock. Those are very bold predictions. We know Dogecoin can do well, but right now we are faced with this current pullback, this current situation. What's going to happen with the war going forward? Let me know in the comments below. If this thing drags out with Iran, what's the impact going to be on the markets? Please let me know. Give the video a like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I appreciate the support. We'll see you next time.